Perfect. Okay, here we are.
With a nice fast
Hello,
music.
everyone, and welcome back to
Hey,
a competitive play check-in for Star Wars Unlimited. I'm your host, Andrew Taylor, and I'm joined by
competitive play check-in.
Nice.
we got Jimmy Shooter, Ryan Miles, and Tyler Perry.
They got the whole squad there today, Coach.
Yeah. We saw the newer dev on that draft stream, right?
Yeah.
And then we got the classics along with
we got the lead designer and developer, and then we've got the lead creative.
Yeah.
But he was previously like a senior game developer or designer or something.
Yeah.
Prior to that.
Well, let's find out what they did.
Yeah. How many views does this have already?
Probably a lot. 6,000.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot.
People really care about this. Yeah. Obviously. Like it affects a lot. So let's find out what they said.
About some of the sectors that have come over the last couple weeks. We've had 3, I believe, 2 in Europe, 1 here in the United States for sector qualifiers. These are the first of our competitive series events that are outside of the store. They're at convention centers, massive events. We're really excited to see these events happening. It's finally kicking off, and it feels real. And we're here to see some of these big competitions happen and see some of the most competitive players traveling all over to finally play each other. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, it's awesome.
For most of the stream.
It's gonna be good to see because we released our podcast today with our predictions.
Yes.
So we're gonna see.
Yeah. Can we recap those predictions? I think I predicted both Jango and DJ.
I predicted.
Did you predict nothing?
My prediction was more that they weren't going to touch anything related to Han because they don't have the stats for it. But I figured they would. I didn't know what they would do with Jango. My assumption is they'll do something with Jango.
Okay, fair.
But David and Jim both said they're not going to do anything.
Well, we will find out. And to be clear, Jay and I haven't watched this yet. This is our live reaction. Also, even though it was recorded 10 minutes ago or whatever. That
hair artwork in the middle, why is everything blacked out?
Dude, I pulled that image to use in some backgrounds and stuff like that. And I saw exactly the same thing. I was like, what's going on? But I think what they did is they extended the background out because the splash art usually is just the middle and it cuts off where Hera's arm is.
Interesting. It looks so weird.
She's sort of in a cockpit, but the cockpit isn't attached to anything.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah, it was funny when I first looked at it.
Perfect. All right, here we go.
Let's continue.
So I know that people have. Now we can tell them. So I know that many people have been curious about our plans for when we will be announcing things like this, and I want to say that our current cadence we've told you all about as we went into Twilight Republic and Jump to Lightspeed was a week or 2 before the set drops. We want to do a meta update. Looking at all the planetary qualifiers and things like that, and that has not changed. We plan to do that as we get closer to Legends of the Force as well. But we also want to do more competitive check-ins during the competitive season between sets, and so it's not something that we want to say here's our hard dates for each of these the first of the month thing. We want to be flexible and able to adapt to whatever large regionals are happening, things like that. So this is perfect timing, and was planned months ago to be sitting here to chat once we had the sector date picked out. So we want to be able to come in.
How long ago did they plan this live stream?
I don't know. At least 2 weeks, because they at the end of last month they posted all of their streams that were upcoming.
Do you feel like they already had a decision made when they posted this? I mean, it feels definitely very possible. Weird for it to be right. Just happens to be.
Yeah, right after the first couple PQs. Yeah. Maybe they had always intended to do this just as hey, we finally had some of these bigger, sectors or whatever.
That's fair.
Let's check in and see how things are going, and then maybe. Well, I mean, we still don't know what they're gonna do, so
yeah,
maybe it's still just that.
Sure.
And talk about what's happening at these major events right away, and it's now just coincided very well with what we now have to talk about today. And so, for those of you who were not around, maybe when we talked about Boba Fett and his suspension back right before the release of Twilight Republic, Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about our suspension philosophy as a whole for Star Wars Unlimited?
Absolutely. So first off, why do we use the term suspension? It's because these cards are
He was good. He was on point with swapping cameras.
But we don't see it as necessarily permanent. These cards could well be unsuspended at some point in the future. Maybe not, probably not all of them, but some could come back at some point. So it is not necessarily a permanent thing. As far as our criteria for suspension, there's a few factors we really look at. The first is just dominance. If a deck is a huge percentage of top 8s at big tournaments or is consistently winning competitive events over and over again, that's going to be our number one factor. We also look a bit at the amount of time a deck has been on top of the meta. If a deck just suddenly shows up for one event versus if it's been around for months and months dominating. And the last thing we look at is the play pattern. There's some types of cards that might have a play pattern that's more detrimental or that hold back a wider variety of decks that we will look at more aggressively taking action on if they're also dominant.
Yeah, like Jango eliminating aggro from the meta.
Yeah.
Literally unplayable in this meta.
Pretty much. Yeah. And I was also I was watching a video that Maddie from KTOD posted, and he mentioned that Jango is suppressing all the set 4 pilot leaders. And after he said that, I was like, wow, that actually makes a ton of sense, because it's like you flip onto your vehicle
and you just tap
and you
it
just
down.
get exhausted down for like nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would you play those
Brutal.
leaders? So I think that's pretty relevant too.
Yep.
Asking as well is, what are the suspensions that will be going into effect as of this Friday, April 11th?
Yeah, I think we're going to throw them up on screen too. But the 3 cards are Triple Dark Raid.
3 cards.
Right off the
Jango Fett, Concealing the Conspiracy.
Whoa.
Obviously the Jango leader from Twilight Republic.
Whoa.
They didn't even slow roll it. They were like 2 minutes into the stream, all 3 cards at one time. Okay. So we got Jango banned, Triple Dark Raid banned, and DJ banned. That's big news.
Wild. Okay.
So they went ahead with both. They said Triple Dark Raid's broken and Jango's broken.
I mean, I think intuitively, like, we know it.
Yeah.
I in not last week, but the week before, I sort of stood up for Triple Dark Raid, because I think it does enable some really cool like villain aggro decks that don't really exist without it. But I mean, it's an insane card.
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous, insane card. So I'm not surprised that it's banned, or suspended. But I'm also, I don't know. Well, I'm a little sad. I like that card. I think it's fun.
That's crazy. I mean, just banning Jango could be like a first step of seeing if this card's like just over the top. But no, they went ahead and hit both.
Jango, TDR, and DJ.
Yeah, I was not guessing DJ. I did not have banning anything for Han on my bingo card. I mean, it makes sense based on what he said.
Yeah, it's just an unfun interaction that I don't think was intended by them. Like, I don't think they meant for it to work in the way that it currently works, where Han gets to destroy the resource that you take, basically eliminating the counterplay that DJ has like built into him. So
sure.
Yeah. It's also just not fun.
Yeah,
getting your resource stolen feels so bad, especially just like because of the leader mechanic and how they can put you off of that leader deploy for a turn. Just feels so bad.
Yeah, 100%. That's crazy.
Wow.
Okay. So is Han still playable, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
He's still...
I think he's still playable. I mean, like, that interaction was obviously ridiculous, but Han's still pretty cool. He still does some cool things.
Yeah, no, Han Green will still be good. Do you agree with the decision to ban DJ over banning Han or doing any errata?
I think they could have like changed the rules to where like you can't destroy your opponent's resources or something, even if you controlled them. But that feels so clunky. Like I don't think I prefer this.
Even like that's possible.
Han was like really the only deck that was playing DJ anyway, and only that, like that was the problematic interaction. So I'm totally cool with them just like saying, yeah, we're not cool with this in the game, like as a play pattern. But Han as a leader, like, he is very cool. He's very unique. He's not necessarily like broken or overpowered without this, because there are a lot of other balancing mechanisms to him in terms of like the card advantage that you lose when you use his ability. But yeah, I'm happy to see this one gone, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. Because like it was ramp and deramp for your opponent, which was just absolutely insane.
It's just absurd. A lot on top of each other.
Absolutely absurd. I don't think we're surprised by any of these being banned.
No.
I don't think so.
I wouldn't say surprised.
Would you have been okay if they said, all right, Han leader is going to have an errata that you can only destroy a resource that you own?
No, I don't like it.
It like changed it to match Lando's thing.
No.
How often would that errata actually matter for most people?
Probably. Well, yeah, I guess it would like, only affect the interaction with DJ.
Yeah.
But I still just like fundamentally don't like the idea of changing cards from what they say to something else.
No, I totally I hear you, but I think the reason I don't like it is because so many players that aren't competitively tuned, which I would say there's a lot of players, casual players for this game.
Yeah.
Can't just pick up the leader and do what it says, right? But I don't think that errata change actually would have affected literally like anybody besides the people who are competitively tuned, and they would know.
They would know inherently. Yeah, that might be true. That might be true. All right.
I still think errata sucks, so I'm totally fine with them banning DJ, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a fundamentalist when it comes to not errata in cards, like not doing functional errata. I just feel like it muddies the game more than it's worth. And it's like so much cleaner to just do this, even if it's like slightly worse on the margins for people. Like I think overall for the health of the game and just like the community in general, I think it's better.
Yeah,
to do it this way. So,
all right,
let's see what they say about it.
Yeah, before we talk too much, let's see what their reasonings were. I'm curious.
Yep.
Yeah.
And see if we get any spoilers.
About why we did those
yeah, we're going to be talking a bunch about this, but these will be in effect as of April 11th. That's this Friday. So for many of you who are planning to head to Richmond for the sector qualifiers, as well as all the regional qualifiers will be happening and planetary qualifiers, this will be in effect for all of these events.
Richmond is going to be crazy.
That's going to be wild.
So I think a really important part of why we chose this week. Danny, do you want to talk about why now is the right time to take action?
Yeah, so this, as you alluded to, Xander, is a pretty ideal timing point for us, where we've gotten to see data from the 3 sectors already and some other big events that also happened in these first few weeks. But we have a gap now before the next sector in Richmond and before PQ season starts and before regionals hit. So we can take action now, go into effect this week, while still giving people a couple of weeks to prepare for those big competitive events.
Yeah,
it's time to
parts, right?
lock in.
One of the reasons that we had picked this week specifically to have a meta check-in at all is just because we incidentally found that there was a couple weeks of no major events, and we could sneak it in so that anything that we did want to talk about, people would have ample time before the next big event.
That's cool.
To adapt or adjust or discuss.
Yeah, and well, this is going into effect fairly quickly, obviously, with a couple of days, similar to what we did with Boba Fett. We want to make sure that you had multiple weeks before you had to get
I have locals tomorrow night, so that means I can bring Jango, right?
For casual, I think it's fine, right? Oh, maybe it's banned in casual too.
Yeah, they said annual local game store, but it's not till Friday.
Also, for those of you at home.
Oh, not till Friday. Okay, yeah, so you can do it.
So I can bring Jango tomorrow night. Let's go.
One last day.
Are new to the team as one of the developers. So if you missed the stream where you were introduced, here's Ryan. But also, you wrote an article covering all this as well, so stay tuned. That'll be going live around 2 p.m. on our website.
He wrote an article.
Cool. I want to make sure we chat about it with everybody too. So why don't we talk a little bit about Triple Dark Raid to start?
Absolutely. We talked a lot about the difference between Triple Dark Raid and Jango, which one of these was kind of the problem. Those were the 2 things that most of the community was really upset about. It's just like the play patterns of those 2 cards, and we ended up going with both of them. So talking about Triple Dark Raid first, it had 100% representation in the top 8 of our very first sector qualifier in Milan. That was 3 copies in all 8 of the top 8 decks, which is just an overwhelming amount of copies of a card to be in the top 8, even across 2 different decks, right? And then of course with the next sectors next weekend, it was in 2/3 of all of the top 8 decks, just an over-present card and extremely powerful, right? The real issue with the card is it doesn't even have to go with Jango. It is just a fundamental problem in terms of how much damage the card can do. Especially when paired with the Devastator, when paired with the War Juggernaut, the fact that the unit comes in ready and can attack immediately at a resource discount means you're just pushing out more damage than any cunning card really should be doing, right? It really should be more in the aggression pairing. So the fact that you see the TDR, that Triple Dark Raid put into the aggression decks, especially where it is taking advantage of those big, powerful aggression chips, it was just doing too much damage and really represented some play pattern problems.
Yeah.
What do you think about that reasoning?
I completely agree. I mean,
Same.
That's obvious. I don't think we needed a designer to tell us that.
No, he did a great job of laying it out, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense to me.
Love it.
So, Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about the design of Triple Dark Raid and sort of where it was in Tyler as well when we had this developed for Shadows of the Galaxy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing here is we developed it for the Shadows of the Galaxy and to some degree the Fire of the Republic metagame in a world where there just weren't as many great hits. There weren't Devastator. There was Ruthless Raider, of course, is the best one, but there wasn't Devastator and War Juggernaut and all these other cards. So there was a real risk reward with it at the time. There was a chance that you would miss on hitting a really good target when you played it.
And because we didn't have, because the volume of space units in the game prior to Jump to Lightspeed didn't really support a deck full of space units that could really consistently capitalize on Triple Dark Raid. The reason that the card is so strong is because there is intended to be a certain amount of risk to it. That sometimes you're going to not get the unit you want, sometimes you might not get a unit at all, and sometimes you're going to get a great unit at a discount attacking right away. And it turns out when we print a bunch of really good space units, this card,
in the following set.
Yeah. Well, it's not just space units either. It's just vehicles, including ground units.
The more space units and better space units would be coming. We tried to balance it in a forward-looking way, but we missed. The degree to which the vehicles got better going forward was just more than we anticipated. And one thing that this is worth noting about our design philosophy is when we got to Jump to Lightspeed, obviously we knew we were adding a lot of great space units, a lot of vehicles. We knew the Triple Dark Raid existed, but we didn't want to hinder an entire set for the sake of one card. We would rather take action on that one card if it ended up being a problem.
I like that.
Which it did.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think that's a great explanation of Triple Dark Raid and why that's on here. Again, stay tuned for the article for more information about that and some of the numbers and things as we go. But let's talk about Jango Fett, the conspiracy. I know this is one that the community was chatting about a lot over the last couple of weeks. So do you want to talk about that one a little bit, Ryan?
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, Jango, 15 out of 24 of our top 8 for our first 3 sector qualifiers. That is over 50%. It is a very, very high number and something we really wanted to look at. And the play pattern problems here are just that it cuts off a lot of interaction. Being able to protect itself by exhausting all of your opponent's units makes it very hard to deal with in combat. You get to protect that body to keep exhausting every single unit. It's just more than we really feel comfortable with on a leader. And even without Triple Dark Raid, you still have War Juggernaut. You still have Devastator. You still have IG 2000. Jump to Lightspeed gave it a lot of new tools that let it exhaust entire boards that didn't really have back in Twilight Republic. So even with Triple Dark Raid reducing the amount of damage that it can do, it can kind of go back to that tempo style of being able to just make sure that you can't participate in combat that we also don't feel comfortable with. So even without Triple Dark Raid, we feel like Jango is still a problem. Even without Jango, we feel like Triple Dark Raid would still be doing too much damage to our decks.
Is there anything you both would like to add about Jango Fett on top of
that? Only that the Jango ended up in a similar spot to Triple Dark Raid, right? Like we didn't see a huge Jango dominance before Jump to Lightspeed because so much of Jango's design is specific around a specific kind of mechanic that it turns out gets overcharged when you make a whole set mechanic about it, right? Indirect damage naturally plays really synergistically with Jango, and the cards that we made to synergize with the indirect damage mechanic also, right? Because War Juggernaut, IG 2000, these are cards that were designed to help pay you off in a indirect damage deck. They're also naturally really good in a Jango deck, and also all these indirect damage cards are also really good in a Jango deck. And so the environment that the card was originally designed and developed for didn't exist after Jump to Lightspeed came out. And while we knew Jango was going to be strong, we didn't foresee quite how strong he would end up being.
Yeah, and I think this is a point too to emphasize that this is partially the cascading effect of Set 1 Boba Fett, who we had to suspend, where at the time we were testing Twilight and Jump to Lightspeed, we had Boba Fett as the strongest cunning villain of the year probably, but we didn't know he would be suspended. So in a lot of our internal testing, Boba Fett was the one playing all these cunning villainy shells, and that probably made us miss that Jango Fett would be so powerful. Yeah.
All right.
I feel like that's a bad. The other reasons make total sense. Like design, like the set 4 design of bringing in tons of vehicles for Triple Dark Raid, and then bringing in tons of vehicles that deal small amounts of damage to try and help you in an indirect deck be able to like wipe a board that
finish stuff
stacked
off.
at one health, right? That all makes sense as to why all of a sudden Jango came out of nowhere. But I don't think that the whole Boba thing should like. Are you not testing every
testing
leader?
The new leaders because the old leaders seemed more powerful? Yeah,
that seems like a bad reason. But that aside, everything else makes sense.
I understand it because Boba Fett is ridiculous and was absurd. But also, I agree. Like maybe that was the reason, but also maybe look at some playtesting principles to make sure that doesn't happen in the future.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree with it. I like what they said.
Yeah, it's cool to get all this insight too.
Yeah, totally, 100%. So essentially, they're saying whoever designed Set 4 is the reason all of this is happening. I mean, you have to think though. Like Jango was uncapped. Almost every other leader we've seen, it's like
it has some kind of restriction
once
on it.
per round or something like that.
Yeah, or either cost, health, attack. Like there are a lot of different caveats you can put on a card like that. A lot of different qualifiers. Mm-hmm. Jango has none.
Yep.
So yep. All right.
Came out right before Jump to Lightspeed, and that we weren't taking action at that point. So why now with DJ?
Yeah, I can start on this one. I think it's going to be the big question. Why did we not act before? Why are we acting now? And I think a lot of it is what we said in that stream. We anticipated that Jump to Lightspeed would change the metagame a lot, and wanted to see how that played out before we took any action, given where Han and DJ decks had been.
And it didn't.
Obviously, the metagame changed a lot, but it changed in a way that shifted very hard towards dominance by a different deck, which was not necessarily, obviously what we wanted. Now that those changes did happen and we're taking action against the best deck, we don't want to just go back to a world where Han DJ decks are back at the top of the meta, where they're potentially being as dominant as they were in Twilight. And we did feel like taking DJ out of the equation was the step to, one, address the play pattern issues. I think permanent resource seal is the most negative.
I mean, it's the most interesting thing
dial
to
back
do
the power level
as well, right?
What is?
Like, let's just shake the whole thing up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, we're doing this. Might as well just like make the whole meta wide open. You know what I mean?
I can't imagine people are gonna be too mad about all three of these being hit, unless you just bought like a play set of hyperspace DJs for some reason.
Yeah,
like I think you're fine with this.
Yeah, I made a TCG player order the other day. I was like, I'm not buying DJs until after I know
just in case
what's happening.
Yeah, see,
and I didn't. Yeah, there were some other cards too that I didn't order. I was like maybe some Jango cards or something. I was like, I'm just gonna wait and see what happens before I order any of these cards for either of these decks.
Yeah. I do really love a fresh meta though. Like when things like this happen, it shakes things up. It always like it's the most fun time in a game where you get to just explore stuff and try new things that weren't viable before. I think like that is such a fun part of these games, and I'm glad that they are proactive enough at doing this that we're going to get that right now.
We got like 2 weeks until Richmond It's gonna be
that's gonna be a wild 2 weeks, and then see what the best decks are coming out of that, and then we've got we're going to the regional in Minneapolis in May, right? So we got to figure out what we're doing.
Aggro's back on the menu, boys.
It is finally now time to actually test stuff, because I feel like we knew that this was coming. We knew that it was possible that they'd ban stuff or suspend stuff. So it didn't really make a bunch of sense to put a bunch of time into, like being more serious about testing. But now it does.
Now it's time to cook.
It'll be fun.
What do we test against, though? That's the question.
Yeah, that's the question. The good decks that didn't get touched.
Yeah.
Of those Han decks without taking them out entirely.
And also, I mean, you can speak more to this, but I think part of it is also that specifically the Han DJ interaction is hostile to a specific archetype of deck.
Yes.
That we do want to be in the natural cycle of decks that exist in the metagame. And so here, you can keep playing Han, but you don't get to play the version of Han that invalidates a whole archetype.
Han has kind of been performing as the best control deck, which has been a little bit weird. It is supposed to be the sort of mid-range. I'm playing ahead of Curve kind of shell, and I run out of cards. And Tech is going to help mitigate a lot of that. Smuggle is still going to help mitigate a lot of that. But when you also had access to DJ, you were just also beating every other control deck, because getting those 2 resources ahead of them was just too much of a problem. And also, I know a lot of people in the community think that, or just like have opinions that you are able to play around DJ, right? And a lot of the Tarkin Town decks can do it. You have Force Choke. You do have ways to kill DJ. But I think the problem is really just holding up those resources to do it. Because Han is playing ahead of Curve on turn 1, then you're staring at a 3-drop on turn 1. As you have to hold up your resources to play on the DJ, the cards that Han has played ahead of Curve are just kind of beating you up the whole time. So holding up your resources to defeat the threat of DJ is almost as bad as just losing to DJ itself. And we still want Han to be a kind of a pillar of the metagame. It is a really good mid-range deck. It's a very good yellow hero deck. We want those tools to still be in the format, and that's why we ended up going with DJ and not Han solo.
Yeah, I think
I like it.
Great question that I wanted to address is, we're doing Jango and Triple Dark Raid. Is there a reason both of those are being suspended from the metagame rather than Han is not, and Han is still around after this?
Yeah, Jango and TDR are just both really problematic independently of another. The Triple Dark Raid got a lot of new tools with War Juggernaut and with Devastator.
Devastator's a big one.
Devastator's huge, right? Jango is really good with IG 2000 and War Juggernaut and Devastator. So when you take out Triple Dark Raid, you still have all those problems. When you take out Jango, you still have all those problems. So it was kind of a perfect storm that they both got all these tools at the same time in the same deck and just had complete unprecedented dominance, as we've kind of seen for the past couple sectors. We really feel like if you just take away one of those, if you take away Jango, those 40 of those 50 cards just go into a different deck, right? And if you take away Triple Dark Raid, you still have Jango, you just don't play Triple Dark Raid, and you're still having all these problems of exhausting entire boards. But with DJ outside of Han really is just playing a fair mid-range game, maybe a little bit unfair mid-range game.
He's playing a fair mid-range game that he gets to be good at.
It's a risky game.
There is definitely a real world where Han continues to be a best deck, and if it goes on to win Richmond, that's not something I'm going to be surprised about. It might look a little silly that we're banning DJ, but then also it might just go on to win the next event. But I think having Han in the format is going to make the format better overall. Building around it and trying to beat it, and just I don't think it'll have the same kind of dominance that we would expect Jango or Triple Dark Raid to really have.
Yeah, I think we can't overstate enough just how much more dominant Jango has been these first few weeks than Han was even in Twilight. Han was a bit above where we want the best deck to be. Jango is way above.
That answers a lot of.
I want to point out
always looking at
that all 4 banned cards are yellow.
Yes, that is not
Boba,
insignificant.
Jango, TDR, DJ, and then the one that they would also consider banning of Han 1 is also yellow.
Yep. Just a strange coincidence there.
Yeah. Ironic.
Yeah. For some reason, yellow gets all of the things and is just the best color all the time.
That's not a story that the Jedi would tell you. The tragedy of Darth Yellow.
Yeah.
Cunning.
Darth Cunning.
All right. Tournament results, different cards like that. I know that there's lots of discussion internally about different things like Tarkin Town and pieces like that. And I'm sure those will be discussions going forward as well. I'm still keeping an eye on him, as you mentioned, towards Richmond and regionals going forward. But looking forward, is there anything that you all want to chat about just overall about the suspension philosophy or anything?
Give us some set 5 spoilers.
We are going to keep looking
set
at this list every time a new metagame hits and see if there are things that can come off the list. I don't think in the immediate future any of these cards are coming off.
I got some of those pink sleeves.
Several months down the line, the meta has shifted enough.
Or
those are cool.
Yeah.
Nice. For your mace deck.
Yeah.
Also something to talk about. Just Jump Legacy was pretty much in the vehicle set.
I need a new mace Windu, man.
Previous sets kind of got a big boost. Legends of the Force is the Force set, right? So
next set, hopefully.
Those Force cards, those Force payoffs that might be really, really good coming into Legends of the Force, but I don't think we're really looking at any preemptive action on that front.
Yeah.
Force throw ban.
Force throw.
Close out here today.
No, they've covered it.
They've covered it.
We always are looking to see. We're every time we do one of these meta check-ins, we're always looking at the suspended list to see if anything can come back. And even if the answer is no, we're always at least checking.
They're like, and to your surprise, we're bringing back
Bringing
Boba.
Boba back.
A little silly to be talking about unsuspending a card right now.
What do you think are the odds that they ever bring Boba back? What's
Never.
the 0%? You think?
Yeah, I don't think any of these 4 cards will ever come off of the suspended list.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think there's a world that ever happens.
If any of those cards were in set 4, I would say maybe once set 1 through 3 rotates, but that's not happening, and that's not the reality. And yeah, I also agree. Boba's probably still way too good.
Yeah, totally. Like a Boba deck right now, I think would have still been better than Jango.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, that's in my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
Especially like, yeah, I think Boba Green. We were considering doing this gameplay video, Boba Green versus Jango Red.
Yeah,
Boba has all the same tricks that Jango has, but also has like the big flip turn that Jango doesn't have.
Way bigger flip turn. Doesn't get to do all the exhausting with the ability, but that flip turn.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
We could do now. They can introduce a band
like an eternal
format. A band
all the band
format
stuff comes back.
They'd have that in
for all
Flesh
the
and Blood,
degenerates,
and it's actually insane because of how broken some of that stuff is in that game. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, maybe one day.
A year into the game's life.
Well, yeah.
Well, specifically, they were only a year into the game's life, right? Boba hasn't been gone forever.
True.
Okay. All right. So again, we'll be back in late June, early July with the next meta check-in. This will not be the last time we talk about the competitive series of events that are currently ongoing. Will be happening through all of April, May, and into June and July with the Galactic Championship ending Season 0. But we will be having our official meta check-in again with an article and another stream dedicated specifically to that then. But again, we always had the option to do things sooner, and we're glad that we had today already planned. But we don't want these sort of competitive check-ins to be something scary or something that we're expecting suspension every single time. We do want to just do a great job of acknowledging some of the results, talking about what we've seen, anything that might be a problem down the road. I think it's something we want to talk about.
I don't think anyone was scared for today, except maybe the people that have the showcase, Jango. Hyperspace.
Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you all next time.
I've got a play set of those. I still like those.
Yeah, totally.
I'll put them in my Twin Sun stacks. And both leaders are, Boba and Jango. Great Twin Sun stack.
Yep.
They're legal in that format. So, use your showcase there.
Yeah. I'm going to make a band TD, or I'm going to make a band
showcase deck or Twin Sun stack.
TDR.
Anytime a card gets banned, you slot
DJ.
it in.
I mean, it fits in a Boba Jango deck because it's double yellow.
It's double yellow. That's perfect.
That's so funny.
Oh, that's great.
But no set 5 spoilers.
Yeah, sad.
What? They got the set 5 here. They're showing us.
We already seen all these cards, Xander.
Come on.
But yeah, we talked a lot about what we think about this. So
I think it was the right decisions. I think I agree with what they did.
Yeah,
I am very excited to see what the meta looks like. I'm interested to see if aggro does make a comeback. Like if Richmond has a bunch of aggro in the top decks or not. Sabine Green can be played again. That's still a super good deck. Kaz can finally be played.
Yeah.
Pilot leaders in general can finally be played. I think they get hit really hard by cards like Bamboozle and Confiscate.
Yeah, of course.
Or like No Good to Me Dead. Like Yellow Villain is still has the answers.
It still has all the tools and more.
So I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens. I'm excited to finally be able to open Discord and see what everybody else is saying.
Yeah, same. I know we've been staying off of it for a while till we could record this, but yeah, I'm excited to go check that out. I think I'm excited for the new metagame. I am excited that they were able to move quickly on this. I think one of the things that we were worried about was do they have to wait 2 months to get approval from LFL or whatever?
Yeah.
And it seems like that's not the case. So, yeah, I just think it's cool that they're willing to move, it
was a quickly
when necessary on stuff like this. And I do think it was necessary. So I could not be more excited for what the game is going to look like over the next couple months.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty crazy. All right.
Sweet. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, subscribe. See you on the next one.
Bye.